right, welcome in everyone. It's another edition of the WobCast 2.0. I'm your host, Mike Wobschall. It's Wobby, joined by Giles and Chase per usual. We are here with you for the next half an hour or so to continue the conversation as the Vikings continue what is appearing to be a magical season in 2022. The Minnesota Vikings play on Thanksgiving night. For the first time, they host a game on Thanksgiving and they do it right. They come out victors over the New England Patriots, 33-26. They move to 9-2, and they have exorcised some demons. And that is the name of the game on episode 12 of the WobCast 2.0. We're glad you're here. Chase and Giles, glad you guys are here as well. How was Thanksgiving, and how was the Vikings versus the Patriots?
Boy, oh boy, was that a game. I definitely love Thanksgiving for a lot of reasons. It's always a lot of food. At least in my household, we play a lot of games, which, to draw a parallel to the Vikings game, the best game of all, chess. I was going into that game knowing it would be a master chess match, and boy, oh boy, was it. And I'm just ecstatic to see that Kevin O'Connell was able to leverage his time with Belichick and get a leg up on him. So it was awesome.
Yeah, the Thanksgiving was great, but Victory Friday made it feel a lot better. So
Yeah.
Yes, it's it's tough to get a Victory Friday because that means you had a short week, guys. It's tough to do that against Bill Belichick, and we've titled episode 12 of the WobCast 2.0 "Exorcising Demons" for a number of reasons. One of that is the difficulty in winning on a short week in and of itself is only exacerbated when you play Bill Belichick. Historically, Bill Belichick, 13-1-1 against the spread on a short week. The Vikings not only won the game, but they covered the game. So the second team in 16 short weeks for Belichick to cover. The Minnesota Vikings do that. I think another example of exercising the demons, guys, primetime Kirk Cousins, right? Don't we hear that a lot? You can't do it in prime time. He doesn't play as well. Well, how's what was it? 30 of 39, I believe it was, for 299.
That sounds right. Yep.
Yeah, 299 yards and 3 touchdowns, only sacked one time. So exercising some demons from that standpoint as well. And you alluded to it, Giles, at the top, but Kevin O'Connell, who at one time was a member of the New England Patriots as a player, matches wits, not just maybe matches wits, but outwits Bill Belichick here in this game on a night when he didn't have a starting left tackle. And we talked about this last week about the trouble that we foresaw coming while being, you're left-handed with one hand tied behind your back, playing Bill Belichick on a short week. You already can't protect even with Darisaw in the game, and now you don't have Darisaw. And the Vikings found a way to scheme around that. We're going to get into how they did that and some other key moments in the win over New England. We'll take a look around the NFC, and we'll preview the Vikings and the Jets game today on the WobCast 2.0. But we start things off by sort of celebrating this victory for the Vikings, which was a big one because the two teams that the Vikings should be paying a close attention to when they scoreboard watch also won this week, and that's the Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. So it was a big win for the Vikings. They got to relax over the weekend on Sunday and watch other teams play because they got that win on Thursday night, and it was a lot of fun to watch. Let's go over some of those key moments in the game, guys. I have a handful of them, but I want to sort of tee it up here to Giles to give us your thoughts initially on this game and a key moment or two that you thought unfolded on Thursday night.
Yeah, absolutely. If we're going to call things from a high level, I'm definitely eating my words here this week. I went into that game thinking we were going to lose. After seeing the things that went wrong against the Cowboys, although I'm a big fan of the Minnesota Vikings in general and KOC, I didn't think we could overcome that with the Patriots being one of the best pass rushing units in the NFL. I expected a repeat, not because our team is bad, but because we weren't built to beat a team like the Patriots. So with that being said, that makes me exuberantly happy that we were able to overcome those things because all emotion aside, when you go line by line and position by position going against each other, we were mismatched going into that game with injuries, and we still found a way to overcome. And I think one of those big moments that you'll probably bring up, Kene Nwangu, just what a guy, getting that that punt return that always puts you in a position to succeed. One, because he put points on the board, but additionally, it gave your team, both on offense and defense, a lot of momentum with a game that is highly based on momentum, and that really put us into our strides to win the game at the end.
I actually have that, Giles. That's the number one key moment I had in the game. And
Yeah.
I didn't spend a lot of time ranking them, but I tried to put them in a fairly significant order, and I was oscillating between the first and second on my list, and I ended up putting that one on number one. 97-yard kickoff return touchdown. And to me, it was not just the fact that it resulted in points and it takes pressure off the offense because you give them 7 points that they didn't have to generate on their own, but it came right after a New England touchdown that gave New England the lead as the third quarter began. And so I thought it was a way to break the momentum that New England was generating.
Yep.
And, we talk all the time about plays that could go either way, and each team catches a break. And I think there was a fairly significant hold that was not called on that return. But look, the ref's going to miss some calls every now and then, and sometimes the ball bounces your way. It did in that case for the Vikings. I thought that was a huge moment in the game. And I thought special teams overall was key in this game. And the Patriots, very stout, very good on special teams historically. But there was another special team snafu by the Patriots. That's the number 2 play in this game. You know where I'm going with that one?
Yeah.
Running into the kicker.
You run into the kicker. Yeah. What in the world?
Early fourth quarter, and you extend a drive for the Vikings that they end up driving down the field and they score the game-winning touchdown. Because there were no points scored after that. That was Thielen's touchdown. No points scored after that. That ends up being the deciding play in the game, essentially, is a running into the kicker. And so I thought it was very interesting. The top 2 plays in this game were special teams plays that went in favor of the Vikings. Very interesting against the Patriots, a team that's very sound on special teams.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you'll find a lot of people online calling the Vikings quote unquote lucky. And lucky may mean different things to different people. Some people think like 10 times out of 10, that's only going to happen once. And that's just a snafu that you can't count on week in and week out. You're not a Super Bowl winning team. But I look at luck as essentially preparation meeting opportunity. And I think opportunity will always be brought forth in a game, because it's not just this clear winning team over here and this is a clearly poor team over here. I think there is always going to be opportunity in a given game, and if you're lucky, there's going to be a ton of opportunities throughout the game to take advantage of it. And I think we were the more prepared team going in, period. Yeah. And I give a lot of credit to KOC. I think our team has been quite prepared in most of our games this year. I think you could maybe chalk up the Cowboys loss primarily to lack of preparation. And I think lack of preparation sometimes gets perceived as laziness, like, you weren't prepared. Well, I view it in a different way, where you prepared for the right things, and that's your game plan, the way you're preparing your plays for that. And I don't think we brought the right game plan to the Cowboys game, so we were simply not prepared for what they were going to throw at us, and it all fell apart. Today, we were prepared for the right things.
Yep, yeah, I agree with that. And then the other thing with the Cowboys game too that I'll throw in a line of defense for the preparation aspect is the left tackle going out in the middle of that game. I thought they probably had a good plan with Darrisaw in. They did not adjust well when Darrisaw left. I mean, they didn't make, and Kevin O'Connell has forgotten more about adjustments than I'll ever know. So who am I to criticize him for that? But it's almost like they kept playing that game thinking Darrisaw was still the left tackle. Totally different story here against the Patriots. They had a plan for what to do. I mean, look, Matthew Judon, I was at the game. I'm guessing the TV crew didn't call his name more than a couple times.
I think he only had 1 sack given up by Ed Ingram. Blake Brandel. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, so yeah. I thought, they did a great job against Matthew Judon and a great job in general. Cousins was 30 of 37 for 299 and 3 touchdowns, only sacked 1 time. He was accurate. He spread the ball around, 11 targets for Jefferson, 10 for Thielen, got Hawkinson involved. And so that was one of my other notes from this game. And I also tweeted about it. I think the Hawkinson trade continues to look better and better. And it's not just because the numbers are huge and he's scoring a bunch of touchdowns, because he's not. I believe that was his first touchdown as a Viking. But he's definitely a weapon. He's a guy with whom you can be tactical.
Mm-hmm.
Rudy had an impact that was significant for the Vikings for a lot of years, but it was more blunt force. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like you didn't have to game plan it. You could just have him run normal routes, and he's bigger than all the safeties and faster than all the linebackers. And he just, he'll just out athlete you.
Yep.
Hockenson is a route runner, and he's smooth and he's deceptive, and he can run combo routes, and he's good against zone or man. And I just think you can be tactical with him. And that's probably what the Vikings saw when they wanted to upgrade at that position, and Irv Smith got hurt. And you probably have a little bit of that with Irv, but he's hurt all the time, so they got it now with Hockenson. And what they end up doing with Irv is subject matter for another WobCast 2.0 episode down the road. But for now, they have Hockenson, and that trade continues to look better and better. And that was really the final point I was going to make on this game. You already hit KOC scheming well. I thought this was a shining example as he went against Belichick, but we've touched on that point already. So I thought really a momentous win for the Vikings. I'm not going to say that you're reeling if, that you're a reeling club if you don't win that one. But it would be 2 losses in a row, and then you'd have the Jets coming in. And, there'd be some doubters, I think. And so a really big win for the Vikings. I would be curious to know, though, Giles, how we graded out in this game, particularly up front with pass protection and run blocking. I'm wondering if we use the analogy of for Kevin O'Connell, using Dalvin Cook is like eating vegetables. Like, it's good for you and you should do it, but you don't want to do it. You want to eat everything else on your plate. And we're not seeing great involvement by Dalvin Cook. Is that a factor of poor run blocking or not? And then how did we grade out pass protection wise? Would be curious to know those numbers. I know you have them.
Yeah, 100%. Before I get into the overall PFF grades on both offense and defense, I wanted to touch on the run game, because I think not to expose the PFF grades too much, but we did far better in pass protection than we did in run blocking, which is ironic for our team. Usually it's the other way around. Although we've had a pretty good year, all in all, run blocking has definitely been the superior element of the offensive line. And we still averaged, I believe, 4.4 yards per carry, which isn't like, whoa, we're stuffing it down your throat, but it's enough to be successful. And that's where I wanted to call this out as one of the low-key winners of this game, because people maybe not look at this game and say, oh, the run game is what won this game. But I think it was part of it, because the run game was allowed us to get a lot more flexible with our pass game, where we could run play action more effectively. We had not the greatest screen game, but we did okay. And just did a lot more things where we were a little bit more unpredictable. In my opinion, if you can't get that run game going, you become less predictable, because our offensive line, not to give too much away, they did not do well run blocking wise. Like, I don't believe anyone scored above a 60 on the offensive line, PFF grade, specifically for run blocking. Don't let that confuse for overall PFF grades. But for run specifically, the offensive line, none of them scored above a 60, which is an issue. And the fact that we were still able to achieve 4.4 yards per carry really shows, at least in my opinion, the true resiliency of Alexander Mattison and Dalvin Cook, where we could at least keep it competent, where it's not out of this game. It's still something where if you do run 3 times in a row at 4.4 yards per carry, you're still going to get a first down. So that was a huge benefit for us. But I'm just going to quick share something here. Let's see here.
Yeah, I think while you're pulling that up, Giles, and this is something that Chris Collinsworth talks a lot about too, is the impact of the run game. And I bring him up because I think he's got some sort of ownership stake in Pro Football Focus. And you keep referencing these PFF grades. And for those who aren't familiar, it's Pro Football Focus. And what they do is they watch every snap, every player of every game, and they grade it out. And they understand their limitations in doing so. They don't know the play calls. They don't know the ins and outs of every scheme, but these are smart football men and women who are doing this and grading it. And if nothing else, it gives you a number. It gives you a data point to talk about. And it's more than just, I think I remember I saw this thing happen. It's like, no, these guys are watching the film and they're marking everything down. And so this is why we like to talk about them, because it gives us a basis, at least, at which to speak about it. And Chris Collinsworth has an ownership stake in this outfit, and he talks a lot about, everyone knows, if you run the ball, you can use play action. Well, it's not just, if you show the willingness to run the ball, play action will work. You don't have to be a great running team to have play action work. You have to be willing to run it. And that's why even if it's 2.2 yards a carry or whatever it was for the Vikings on Thursday night, if you still do it, if you still ring the bell a few times, they have to respect it when you show run action or play action. So it is an important factor in the game. And even though we're paying Dalvin a lot of money and he's not rushing for a lot of yards, he still has a place in this offense, a valuable place in the offense. So
yeah, could not agree more. And that actually reflects directly into this next element here. So I did this breakdown here of the at least the starting offense for the Vikings based on 11 personnel, where you have 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a running back. Although there were other players that contributed to our offensive success, this is kind of the starting unit. So before I get started, do you have any guesses on who is the highest PFF graded player on Thursday?
So this is offense only with 11 personnel. Which is 1 running back and 1 tight end. That's the number system. Is how many backs? That's the first number. How many tight ends? That's the second. There's 5 eligible players. So 5 minus whatever that number is gives you how many wide receivers are on the field. So this is 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end. And you're doing overall offensive grade?
Yes. Yep.
I'm going to say, I want to say Thielen. I know Jefferson would be, it might be Jefferson. His numbers were gaudier, but I was there and I loved how Thielen played. So I'm going to say Thielen.
Thielen is just outside of the top 3 at a 70.6 PFF grade. Before I show them, I'll give you 2 more shots.
I mean, Jefferson?
Jefferson is the number 1 overall graded player. Okay. He had an 86.1 PFF grade, which I know there's been a lot of comparisons made to Mr. Moss there on Thanksgiving, but he had a great game. Like it was fantastic. And I think one of the players that I think you could contribute to Justin Jefferson's success outside of Kirk Cousins throwing the ball is TJ Hawkinson, because he was enough of a threat where I believe he was a decent sized distraction for Belichick to try to stop, and that opened up the world for Justin Jefferson, and he did great. He had an awesome game. The other top PFF graded player, if you want to make any guesses, is
Cousins.
Exactly. It was Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, he ended the day with a 70.8 PFF grade.
Okay.
Which, do you want me to have you guess the bottom ones, or do you just want me to show you the whole spectrum?
No,
here?
I want to. Let's guess the bottom ones. Chase, what do you think? A bottom end offensive grade for the Vikings, a night in which they scored 26 offensive points and allowed only 1 sack. So it's kind of we're throwing darts in the dark here a little bit. I'm going to go up front though and take a guess that it was the left guard who didn't play great, Ezra Cleveland. Again, I'm kind of throwing a dart though.
Yeah, no, that's a great comment. He did much better than meets the eye. It is not the left guard, Ezra Cleveland, but Chase? You are close.
Okay, Chase?
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with O-line here just because I think our offensive playmakers did their job pretty well. I'm going to go Ed Ingram.
Honestly, not Ed Ingram. Although he was towards the bottom, he is not the lowest graded player.
Okay, reveal it. Who is it?
It is Dalvin Cook, unfortunately, which is ironic. So here's all the grades across the board. Now, I think it's important to remember that this is a mixture for both pass and run blocking sets. We had some players that did phenomenal in pass blocking, or in just the pass game in general, some in the run game, but there were some players that when they did great in one, they did horrible in another. Dalvin Cook is one of those, where he had a pretty good running game, but he did horrible in pass protection. He got chipped, his chip blocks weren't necessarily where he wanted them to be. So that definitely had an impact. But ultimately, Adam Thielen, a great PFF graded player. Justin Jefferson, obviously great. When you're looking up front, Blake Brandel was the second lowest graded player. Did great. Well, I shouldn't say great. He did okay in pass protection. He did let's see here. Actually, I apologize. He had a 49.1 PFF grade. Or I'm sorry, 62.9. I'm looking at the right number. So he did okay in pass protection, but did not do well in run game. But ultimately, I think we had an okay day when it comes to the overall offensive line, when it comes to a pass protection standpoint. You can make an argument that this was the number 1 game all year for pass protection, and we didn't have Darrisaw. I believe everyone except for Blake Brandel had above a 70 PFF grade in pass protection. So it did quite well. So I think we were not a train wreck up front. I think that's the key point to take away here is although we didn't do great in run game, we did great in pass protection. We weren't a train wreck. It's not like we did horribly in the run, where we were at least able to be competent and keep Kirk protected and keep the element of surprise at play. KJ did not necessarily have a great game at 59.9, but all in all, I think we had a solid mix of players that were able to situationally move the ball down the field, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good analysis of those numbers, Giles. It looks like Hawkinson didn't have his best outing either, but I thought that he had moments where he made some pretty key plays.
Yep.
He had a third.
And the run game is definitely bringing him down. He had a 71 PFF grade in the pass game. So
okay. So that context matters. Because everyone's got to help in every way they can, but. You're not looking for TJ Hawkinson to be a factor in the run game. I mean, he plays the position, so he's got to be and we struggled with this with Rudy early on in his career too, when he came out of Notre Dame. The guy's he's tough and he's willing, but he's just not great at blocking, so he had to get better at it, and he did get better at it over time. And so TJ Hawkinson might be the same way. I think TJ Hawkinson is tough and willing, but it's just not his thing. So if that 63.8 grade for Hawkinson is a reflection of that, it's okay. Where the Vikings will get in trouble is if he's got that grade as a pass catcher, then they'd be in trouble, right? So correct. I don't think that's a big concerning number there. I think that those offensive those offensive line grades are okay. I don't think you want that to get better here over the final, the last third of the season.
Yep.
I mean, you got to make some progress there.
Yep.
You're going to run into a team that's humming defensively like San Francisco or something, and that's going to sting you. So
that is one thing to call out. Ed Ingram specifically got a 72.8 PFF grade in pass protection, which is by far and away his best game is an entire NFL career. Like, he did phenomenal at least for Ed Ingram, phenomenal at pass protection. Yeah. And I don't know if that was him finally clicking on like, oh, I figured it out, or if they went into this game with a game plan knowing, hey, we're willing to sacrifice a little bit of run blocking success if we can shore up our protection. And because we don't have Darrisaw Island on the left side, we are going to prioritize the pass blocking game and let Dalvin make up for the lack of production with run blocking. So, they did not grade in the run block, which is bringing all these down. If you make this pass protection, all of these numbers are green and are 70 or above, except for Blake Brendel. So the point is, if you bring back Darrisaw, if he can play this next game or one of the next games, and you continue prioritize this way, they did phenomenal at pass blocking. It's just, I can't tell if they just had a bad day with run blocking or if they prioritized pass blocking so much that it hurt the run game.
Got it. Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep, it does make sense. Totally get that. And this is a game. Football is a game where you gotta. It's pretty rare where you're 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 and everything. You got to give something somewhere to get something somewhere else.
Exactly.
I don't have any concern about Darrisaw not playing against the Jets, by the way. I think he's going to be back. I bet you he would have said he could have played on Thursday night. So I think he'll be back. Blake Brendel will go back to his spot as a reserve. And I think the Vikings are going to improve right there just with that, the reinsertion of Darrisaw. So that's good news. I look at these overall and I see Jefferson's grade there, and I'd love to see if we could do a post-mortem with Belichick. I'd love to know what the plan was for Jefferson. Obviously it didn't work. There was a plan for him that Belichick had. Obviously they worked on that all week, I'm sure, but it did not work. I'd love to know what it was, and does O'Connell have an idea of what that might be because he spent time in that building? I don't know. That's I'm only speculating on that. I wouldn't think so because it was so long ago. But I'd love to know, what that plan was for Jefferson because it didn't work very well. So, how about defense? Do we have any grades defensively, or did you have more on offense you want to do?
No, that's perfect. We can move over on to defense.
Right, let's do it.
If you had to guess, what is our highest graded PFF graded player on defense?
Well, I want to guess Peterson because the reason I don't want to guess him is I don't think he was targeted much and thrown at much, so he didn't have the chance to fill up the box score and to impress from a tape standpoint. But I think if you go back and look at it, I think he didn't get targeted much because he did a great job in coverage. That's my guess there. So while I don't think he'll be the highest graded, I won't be surprised if he's up there pretty high. If I had to guess who the highest rated one was, I'm going to go to either Hicks or Hunter. And I'm going to guess it's Hicks. I feel like he's around the ball a lot. I feel like he's a leader and a rah-rah guy. And when I'm watching games, whether it's in person or it's on TV, I see him around a lot. So I'm going to guess Hicks and Peterson are in your top 3.
Peterson is number 3 with a 77.1 PFF grade overall. He did pretty great across the board. He got a little dinged in the run game. I think otherwise his PFF grade would have been higher. He did great in coverage, great in tackling. It was just a few plays on run defense that brought him down, but he's still a top 3 player. Hicks and Danielle Hunter are not inside the top 3. Danielle Hunter is more middle of the pack, actually. So I'll give you another shot at the top 2.
Man,
these two players you would have not expected, in my opinion, having watched the game.
Okay, then that makes me want to go up front to probably Bullard, I think. And again, like, I don't remember seeing him do a bunch, but again, I also wasn't watching replays at home on TV. I was there watching it. So now I'm going to go with Bullard. I got to go somewhere up front because that's Stevenson.
Neither of these two players are in the front 3. I'll say that.
Okay, so we're way off on this. Chase, who do you have?
I was looking at Peterson too, just because I was thinking the Patriots were just trying to pick apart Duke Shelley the entire time. So Patrick Peterson never really got the ball thrown to his side of the field. But
it's got to be one of your 2 safeties.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna say Bonham because I think he's been playing so well.
That's a great. Weeks. We're 0 for 3. It is not one of our safeties.
Jeez. Don't even tell me Duke Shelley is playing well.
Oh, no. Okay. I'll refine it even more. It is within the overall linebacker group.
Wow. EK54, huh?
Yep. Mr. Eric Hendricks graded out number 1 with an 81.8 PFF grade. He did great in the run, did great in coverage, and even better in tackling. He had a phenomenal game, which I think is a nice bounce back, exercising the demons, so to speak, because he did not necessarily have a great game against the Cowboys. I believe he was the worst graded player. So I think they schemed away him into him having a great game.
So this... Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was going to say, in the second best overall graded player is Zadarius Smith. He seemed relatively quiet, but I believe he ended the game with 5 overall pressures, which isn't phenomenal, but it's more than I think people thought he had. He did great I should say he did okay in pass rush, did okay in coverage, but was really great in tackling and run defense that was able to elevate him into a 79.7 PFF grade. So we have Eric Kendricks, Zadarius Smith, and Patrick Peterson as our top 3 players on defense. So if you had to guess our bottom 3 PFF graded players, who do you got?
Well, I'm all upside down and backwards on this because I would not have guessed it was a great game for someone in the second level of the Vikings defense, the linebackers, because Ramondre Stevenson had 9 catches in this game. And you pin a lot of that running back production in the passing game. You pin on backers traditionally, but obviously not the case here. So it makes me wonder if, Jordan Hicks didn't play well or if Duke Shelley was down there because a lot of that was on him. So I guess I would go with Duke Shelley because I'm going to die on the Jordan Hicks hill, at least for this episode. So I'll go with Duke Shelley.
So Duke Shelley did not the greatest of pretty much in every category except for tackling. He was phenomenal in tackling, which brought him up to more of a middle of the pack. He did end the day at about a 56.9 PFF grade in coverage specifically. So not the greatest in coverage, but his tackling abilities really elevated him. I will say the bottom 2 are also in the linebacker room, which is ironic.
Okay.
The overall linebacker room.
Geez, so you're going to put Hunter down there, huh?
It is not Danielle Hunter. He's in the bottom 5, but he's not in the bottom 3.
Okay. So now, then we're left with Hicks. You already said Smith.
Yeah, sorry. It's also in players that are outside of this graphic. So we have Patrick Jones the second was the worst graded player at a 41.9 PFF grade, and then DJ Wanham ended the day at a 47.9 PFF grade. So those two did not do great in the rotation, and then Cameron Bynum, at least in the starting lineup, was the worst graded player at a 52.0. Did great against the run, but horrible in tackling. He got a 24.2 PFF grade in tackling and a 48 PFF grade in coverage. So Cam Bynum did not do great. So this is kind of the spread across the starting defense. Patrick Peterson obviously did great. Harrison Phillips also had a pretty good game up front. I think he was able to help out the run game a little bit, across Bullard and Lynch. Eric Kendricks had a great game. Zadarius Smith. But yeah, Jordan Hicks, Daniil Hunter did not necessarily do great. Duke Shelley, I think, he's still our fourth cornerback. I think he might have spots of brightness that we can leverage in the future to make him better, but he's still a rookie. He was on the practice squad for another team not that long ago, so it's not necessarily super surprising. And then our safety room, really struggling the last couple weeks, honestly. We're not getting the production out of them that I would have normally expected out of Harrison Smith and Cam Bynum, but I can't tell if that is lack of execution or if we're schematically focusing on other areas where we know that they're not a train wreck. Because although these are not great grades, it's not like they're in the 40s necessarily. So if they're willing to give up production in the safety room to help out the linebackers or things like that, you know what I mean?
Yep. So a couple thoughts here, just overall, Giles, after seeing these grades and listening to you talk about some of the data. Can you tell me what Chandon Sullivan, how he graded out?
Chandon Sullivan actually did pretty well. He had a 74.3 PFF grade. In tackling, he had an 81.2 PFF grade. So he did great. Even in coverage, he had a 74.1 PFF grade. So he did pretty well, all things considered.
Not surprised to hear that. I think he's a pretty solid, stout, salty player. I like him on this defense. Not surprised to hear what you're saying about the safeties. Harrison Smith, to me, was used in a more tactical way by previous regimes than he is right now. So I don't know if they're still trying to feel their way around with Harry, or if Harry is just not someone that they want to do that with in this scheme. Not really sure there. But my experience tells me that there will be a couple of Harrison Smith moments here down the stretch and in the playoffs where you're going to be glad that number 22 is on your defense. I think that's coming.
Especially once Cam Dantzler comes back, because if you really follow the projection and the evolution of our defense from week 1 till now, right after the bye, we actually started running a little bit more single high safety when Cam Dantzler was there, where we started adjusting our defense, where we trusted our cornerback room a little bit more, where we could stack the box a little bit more. We were elevating in a lot of categories across the entire defense, and then Cam Dantzler got hurt, and then we reverted back to running too high safety a lot more, which just makes you more one-dimensional, honestly. So I think once Cam Dantzler comes back, I think you're going to see Harrison Smith pop off even more, like you're mentioning.
There you go. That makes a lot of sense. And look, you're getting by with Duke Shelley right now. That's pretty good, because you're not playing with Evans. You're not playing with Booth. Dantzler, take it or leave it. I think he's a little bit of a lightning rod player for people. Dantzler is. I think he's got some high risk, high reward to him. So, but he's one of your better corners, no matter how you slice it. So you don't have those three guys, Evans, Dantzler, and Booth, and you're getting by with Duke Shelley. So, and you beat the Patriots, and you're 9-2. So that's pretty dang good.
Exactly.
Those numbers up front are not good enough either, guys. That's not going to cut it when we get into January and you're playing in playoffs. Those numbers up front have to be better. And
very clearly missing Dalvin Tomlinson, because in my opinion, he was performing like a top 5, maybe top 10 defensive tackle before he got hurt. So I'm really excited to get his presence back, because I think he's great in getting push up the interior, but he's also great against the run game. So I'm very, very excited to get him back into the lineup.
Yep, agreed. So those are the numbers on defense for those who can see it. For those listening who can't, really good games by Patrick Peterson, Zadarius Smith, and Eric Kendricks, leaders and veterans on the defense, and they play well in a short week against a really good team. Those are the guys you needed to step up, and they did.
Exactly.
All righty, so we take a peek around the NFC, guys, and we mentioned it a little bit. The Eagles win on Sunday night. They defeat the Packers in a game that had the Vikings faithful doing mental gymnastics because you don't like either team. You don't want either team to win, but you're kind of rooting for the Packers to win that game, and they didn't because you're chasing the 1 seed, which the Eagles currently hold, and they beat you. So you can't just tie the Eagles. You got to be one game better than the Eagles to get the 1 seed. But the Eagles hold serve at home. I believe that was their 10th win, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? Eagles' 10th win?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So they're a game up on the Vikings and really 2 games up because they hold that tiebreaker. But also the San Francisco 49ers won, guys. And the Niners are a team that I think is playing really well and not a team that you'd like to run into in the playoffs. Now, if the Vikings run into them, at least as it stands right now, they'd run into them at US Bank Stadium, which is a substantially different game than if you had to go to San Francisco to play them. So that's good. But the Niners did win. And in fact, they shut out the New Orleans Saints, a team the Vikings almost lost to in London. So another reason why that win was big for the Vikings on Thursday is they kept pace with the San Francisco 49ers and stayed ahead of them. As you look around the NFC, outside of the Eagles, Vikings, and Niners, what are you seeing in terms of teams who you think can win a playoff game or teams who will be a challenge when we get to January?
It may not necessarily be a challenge directly to the Vikings, but I think they're going to put up a stink when it comes deep in the playoffs, and that's the Commanders. I think they're starting to rally around Heineke. I think they had a little bit of an identity crisis in the earlier part of the season with Carson Wentz. I think you can make an argument that a lot of the team wanted Heineke, but when they chose Carson Wentz as the starting QB, that sent some negative ripple effects throughout the team, and they're a pretty good team. I think a lot of people wrote them off as like, they're not great. But Ron Rivera, I think he's a great coach. I think Heineke is mobile. I don't think he is a top 10 quarterback necessarily, but I think he has a clutch gene. I think he's kind of a 2017 Case Keenum, so to speak, where he can go deep. I mean, if you put the right situation around him, they're not a bad team. They have a pretty decent offensive line. I don't know. I think they're a team that has proven that they're going to try to stay in the dance as long as possible.
Yep, and I think they're salty on defense, Giles. Chase Young is going to be back, and he's a big difference maker for them. I think they have a little swagger, and they do have some resiliency to them, and I think that comes from Ron Rivera, who you referenced as being a pretty good coach. I think he is that. I think he's a good leader of men, and I think he's really good tactically on defense. And Heineke does have that sort of intangible quality to him where he's not filling up a box score and he's not straining you as a defense from a schematic or a strategic standpoint. He's just tough. He's just tough, and he hangs in there, and you just can't get him to go away, So, I think and right now that's who the Vikings would play in the first round. Of course, you have the Dallas Cowboys as well. A team who I think is going to be in it to win it. Chase, any teams that stand out to you? We haven't mentioned Tampa Bay. We have not mentioned the Giants. Any NFC foes that we should keep an eye on here over the final 6-7 weeks?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm just looking at the playoff picture right now, and there's a couple teams that I'm really, assuming that we stay at the 2 seed and we miss that first round bye. There's a couple teams that I would not mind playing, and I know, guys, we just talked about this, but Commanders, not too scared of. Giants, not too scared of. Okay. Buccaneers, not too scared of. Because you got to remember, they're coming to us. They got to play through us. We're the 2 seed. And I think with the confidence and the readiness that we've seen with Kevin O'Connell, we're not going to drop stupid games like we used to. But the teams that I do not want to play, obviously the Eagles, but Dallas, do not want to get that draw. Just because we saw how that ended. And then I would say, what was the other one we were just talking about?
Niners.
Yeah. I cannot.
Man.
Yeah, they got too many weapons. They got a really good defense to rely on, and then their offense they're a very complete team to me.
Niners
don't really
have
too many holes.
Your only draw or tie into the Niners where you can lean on something is O'Connell having experience going against them as a member of the Rams staff. That's really about it, though. That's a nasty draw that you don't want. So, but that wouldn't come until after the first round of the playoffs. The Vikings will draw a team like Washington or Tampa Bay, most likely in the first round, or the Giants, perhaps. So
I also think it's important to note that the Eagles are going into their toughest stretch of games yet so far. I
Okay.
believe they have the easiest schedule in the NFL, like statistically. They
To
have the
date.
easiest to date, yep. And they're
Yeah.
going into their toughest stretch of games. And I don't want to say we're going into our easiest, but I think I was suspecting the Bills, Cowboys, and Patriots to be the toughest games on our stretch thus far. Now, I don't think the Colts are going to lay over for us or the Jets necessarily, but I think if we want to get the 1 seed, we have to win out, which is going to be relatively difficult, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. But if you want the 1 seed, you have to win out and then hope that Eagles drop 2 games. I think that's the only scenario in which we can get that first round bye.
I think you're right. And I don't hate the matchup I know the Vikings got smoked by the Eagles in week 2. I honestly don't hate the matchup. I hate the matchup with Dallas more if I'm the Vikings. Honestly, I really do. And I've said what I've said about the Niners. So there's something about, going back to Philly in the playoffs after what happened in 17, after what happened in week 2 this year, where if you're the Eagles, you're kind of like, ugh, how many times do we have to beat these guys here? And I mean, I just remember a couple of times when I was with the Vikings where we swept the Packers in the regular season, but we always were saying, hope to God we don't draw them in the first round of the playoffs, because how awful is it to have those bragging rights where you beat them twice in the regular season, but they get you in the playoffs? Yeah, and I'm not saying the Eagles are thinking that way about the Vikings or are scared about the Vikings. I'm just saying eventually at one of these times the Vikings are going to win this game at Philadelphia and beat the Eagles, and if they get a swing at them in the playoffs, that'd be pretty good timing. Up next though for the Vikings was that cart before the horse segment, brought to you by We're Looking Ahead Too Much. The Vikings still have regular season games to play. Their next one is against the Jets. Now, if you're an NFC snob or a Viking snob and you don't pay attention to what else is going on, you think this game is an easy one, and then you hear that you might be playing Mike White at quarterback, and so you think the Jets are going to lay down for you. The Jets are 7-4, and they have the number 6 total defense and the number 4 scoring defense in the NFL. They give up fewer than 200 passing yards per game. So this is a big boy game, especially for the guys up front on offense. This is not one of those that you look ahead to who you're playing next. You got to put your time and attention on the New York Jets. Other than that, Giles, Chase, any thoughts on this matchup here against the Jets? Do you fear a trap game as the Vikings perhaps look ahead to the next week? What do you see happening here? I see a grinder. I see a physical game, and one that the Vikings end up winning. And it's a win that will feel really good because they're all going to be beat up and tired after this one.
Yeah. I definitely think we took our medicine with the Cowboys, and I don't think we'll get caught with our pants down, so to speak, against the Jets. I think we understand that they are a great defense. I'm really excited to see the matchup between Sauce and JJ because Sauce is performing like the best cornerback in the league right now. He is shut down, and he's still a rookie. His best games are still yet to come. So they have a great defense, and I think that will be a really interesting matchup where if we can score points against the Jets, I will further believe that we are a true legitimate Super Bowl contender, not someone that has just lucked into 9 wins, because it'll be hard to move the ball against them. So I'm really excited to see what we can do. I'm really hoping we can get Christian Darrisaw back. I think they'll add another notch to our belt to be able to actually succeed here. But ultimately, that's the best matchup that I'm looking at is Sauce and JJ. How about you, Chase?
Yeah, when I'm previewing games, the first word that comes to mind to me is the X factor, and it's a really nice X factor to have, being the best receiver in the league. So I think that him and Sauce is going to be very, very interesting. But even if the Jets are coming into this game knowing that Justin Jefferson has been doing very, very well lately. So I think they're going to be really trying to take him out of the game for us. So I think we go as far as our passing game can take us this game, because what's going to happen is if Jefferson can't get going, that means the Jets are clearly doing a lot to stop him, which means Thielen, Osborne, Hawkinson, they're going to be having pretty big days if Jefferson doesn't. So I think this game, we go as far as our passing game is going to take us.
Yeah, I think that's the case for the Vikings as a team for the whole season. Is they're kind of going to go as far as O'Connell and Cousins can scheme it and play it. And you're right, Chase. I think that if teams are going to be heavy-handed on Jefferson, it's going to open up opportunities for other pass catchers. And I've actually been impressed with Thielen overall this season. He's clearly there's some gas left in the tank there. And you could understand if there wasn't, and if he was losing a step, because he's been doing this for a long time and the Vikings have ridden him pretty hard, but he's performing and he's gaining separation on routes and he's producing. But the Jets do give up about 111 rushing yards per game. And the Vikings are not a rush first team. They're not a team that majors in the run. And I think this is an opportunity for them to get right in the running game. So I'm going to come at this a different way than you just did, Chase. And I actually think this might be a chance for Cook and Madison to team up along with CJ Ham and to sort of figure some things out in the run game and give the Lions and the Giants and the Colts, who you play the next 3 weeks, something else to look at and to worry about. And that's a revived Vikings running game. I think that's their best route against the Jets because of the pass rush, because they're good in coverage. Give them something else to worry about with some creative running schematic things with Madison and Cook. I think that would behoove the Vikings in this matchup and take some pressure off the pass blockers up front. I do think Darrisaw coming back is going to help, but it's also going to help them in the run game because he can set the edge. He's a good run blocker. He's tough. And so I'm anticipating a few more runs maybe than we've seen in the past in this matchup, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, could not agree more. I'm really excited about it. I think if our team can still propel itself forward week over week, I'm of the opinion that Kevin O'Connell is maybe reserving some plays and some schematics for deeper in the season so he doesn't give away the whole kitchen table or the whole kitchen too early, so to speak, so then we can pull it out when it's needed. So I'm really, really excited. I think this is when you're going to start to see more and more wrinkles thrown in.
Yep. Agreed with you. And we'll have more and more wrinkles thrown into the WobCast 2.0 and all of our programming and social media channels. So we hope you guys are all following us there. You can download the WobCast 2.0 wherever you download all of your favorite podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram and on Twitter. It's fun to banter back and forth, guys, with our friends on Twitter. And I'm doing that at Wobby. So make sure you come and join us. Some people got mad at me because we were talking about the Hunter Henry takeaway touchdown and is it a catch or not a catch? I think those types of topics are fun to exchange ideas with people, to choose hills to die on or not. Very rarely do people change their minds, on some topic you're debating with them. But it's fun to go back and forth. So we've had a good time doing that. We released the PFF grades on our social media platforms as well. So we hope you guys are following us there. But that's going to do it for me for episode 12, fellas. Did we empty out your notebooks as well or anything else to get to?
I actually do have one more thing that I just do want to touch on before we get into this week. Just really quick. The Vikings have had a couple weeks this year where we've been the only team in our division to win a game. Which means we have the largest lead out of any division. Mm-hmm. And this week, week 13, with a Vikings win and a Lions loss, we will be the first team to clinch their division and a playoff spot.
Jeez.
So something to keep your eye on. Week 13.
All right. So I've been scoreboard watching the Packers or the Eagles and the Niners. Chase is telling me to scoreboard watch the Lions. When's the last time anyone scoreboard watched the Lions?
If you would have told that to us at the beginning of the season, saying, hey, week 13, watch this matchup, we would have thought we were crazy.
We need this Lions loss. The magic number, the Lions are involved in our magic number. Who would have thought that ever? All right. That's a good note to end on. Appreciate that, Chase. Giles, thank you as well. And we thank all of you for listening to the WobCast 2.0, episode 12. Exorcising Demons is over. The Vikings prep for the New York Jets has begun. We hope you'll join us next week when we come back at you with another episode of the WobCast 2.0. For now, though, for Giles and Chase, I'm Wobby signing off. Skol Vikings.